Hi there, Coach Alexa here. So after last week's video all about clothing recommendations for the torrentially wet and miserable, wet, rainy weather we've had recently down in the south east England at least, I got a question back specifically about running shoes and really about, can you get genuinely waterproof running shoes that are going to keep your feet dry for, you know, a decent length run? And I'm afraid the short answer to that question is no. Why do I say that, however? So the biggest problem is the fact that with running shoes, they have a massive great hole right in the top of them that lets the rain in, and that's the hole that they need to have in order for us to put our feet into the shoe and for our ankle to stick out of the shoe. So and because we're not generally, if you were out hiking, you might be wearing boots, and then the trousers that you'd be wearing most likely in the winter would kind of go over the top of the boots, so kind of keep the rain from running down the inside of the boot and into the boot itself. With running shoes, we're generally not wearing the sort of trousers that go over the top. Also, when you're running, if we were, they were flapping around, and if you land in a puddle or something like that, or the rain is heavy, it is just going to run down your leg or splash straight into the top of the shoe, down the edges of your ankle. If there are Gore-Tex running shoes, mostly built for off-road running usually, but some kind of crossover shoes that do road and trail, that do keep the rain out of the shoe kind of upper for longer. So a sort of summery mesh-topped kind of running shoes will not keep any rain out for any length of time at all. The Gore-Tex ones are slightly better. I would say on a really, really heavy rainy day when it's absolutely bucking it down or there's loads of standing water on the roads and trails, I still go with a pair of lighter mesh top trail shoes, because once the water's got into a Gore-Tex shoe and you really are like squelching with a lot of water in there, the Gore-Tex in a way makes it difficult for the water to get back out again. Whereas a more lightweight mesh topped shoe in really, really, really wet conditions allows the water to get out as quickly as it got in, which in some cases can be really useful. Gore-Tex running shoes I find are quite useful for damp days that aren't quite as heavy, shorter runs. If you're running, for example, on the pavements where there's just little bits of surface water, not deep puddles, or if you're in a park or an open space that's kind of mown grass or damp dew in the mornings, then they're good at stopping your feet getting wet in those kind of situations. Out for a longer trail run though, your feet, or road run, in wetter weather, your feet will just get wet eventually. Couple of other sort of things to possibly think about to help, one of which is gaiters. So gaiters are almost like a little seal. So they attach perhaps on the laces and on the back of your trainer so that they drop below the level of the hole that your ankle and your foot goes through. And they also have a little maybe sort of elasticated bit that sits around your ankle. So they act like a little bit of a seal, normally made out of a slightly stretchy fabric. So that if you, for example, are running on the trails and you're not just splashing through water, but it's like mud, it might have grit, twigs, leaves, etc. The water will probably still get in, possibly less of it, because it will sort of bounce, some of it will bounce off the fabric, but it will stop you from getting all the detritus in your shoes. So if you're out trail running in the winter, you probably will have wet feet for most of it, but it'll stop you getting so much of the crud in your shoes, which might cause, sort of annoyance, irritation, or mean that you have to stop to take your shoes off mid-run. So they're worth thinking about, particularly for trail running, or like me, if you live in a fairly rural area and the roads are mostly covered in mud, detritus and stuff as well. The other question I got asked recently, or maybe last winter actually, was about waterproof socks. So I wear waterproof socks when I'm coaching, because normally I'm standing and the other person's running, so I tend to get a little bit colder, and they're great, but I wear my running shoes so I can demo things for the person that I'm working with, but my feet stay nice and warm and dry. For running, I would say, unless it's a very, very cold day, which if last winter's anything to go by, I don't think we seem to get those anymore here in the UK, they can be a bit too hot, to be honest. We generate quite a lot more heat when we're running, so waterproof socks can be a little bit boil in the bag. So your feet will get wet, but it will just be wet with your own sweat as opposed to wet with rainwater. So decisions. I tend to, when hiking, however, I'm normally wearing, sturdier, more waterproof boots. As I mentioned earlier, when you're hiking, the sort of aperture for the boots are higher up. They're not around the bottom of your ankle, they're maybe at the bottom of your shin. Also, you tend to be wearing trousers over the top of you. You can also get fully waterproof lengthy gaiters for boots that go right up to beneath your knee and hook over the top of your boot. So those are the options that really, really keep your feet dry. There aren't options really that work that I've ever come across that do the same for running, sadly, because we need to be out of boots and in shoes because our ankles need their full range of motion when we're running. So I hope that gives some useful tips, even though I can't give you the answer to dry feet in horribly wet runs, I'm afraid.